Today, we're diving into the story behind one of the most recognizable symbols of faith in the entire world. But what if I told you the story you think you know is just the beginning? That it's actually a centuries-old debate, kind of like a historical whodunit, packed with saints, popes, and some seriously mysterious missing evidence.
Right, so the origin of the Rosary is wrapped up in this really dramatic legend about a gift from heaven. But at the same time, it holds this fascinating puzzle that has kept historians arguing for centuries. Was it a single divine download, or did it come about some other way? Let's dig in and find out.
And you gotta understand, the stakes in this debate are incredibly high. When Pope Benedict XIV asks this question, he's not just, thinking out loud. He's pointing to centuries of official, top-down endorsement for the traditional story. And that just makes the historical mystery we're about to unpack even more interesting. Okay, so let's start with the powerful story that has been told for something like 800 years. It's got all the makings of an epic movie. You've got a desperate saint, a crisis that's threatening to tear the world apart, and then a direct intervention from heaven.
This is the foundational story, the one many of us grew up with. It frames the Rosary not just as a prayer, but as a divinely inspired weapon. A spiritual lifeline, really, thrown to the Church at a moment when it was in some serious trouble.
But, and this is a big but, here's where the mystery really kicks in. When historians started digging for proof of this absolutely massive event in the records of the time, they found, well, nothing. Just a really puzzling silence. And that is the huge question that kicked off this whole debate. It's what historians call the argument from silence. Think about it. If the Rosary was given to St. Dominic to literally save Christendom, why didn't anybody at the time write it down? Not his closest friends, not his biographers, not even the early records from his own religious order. It's a very strange silence, don't you think?
Now, this timeline gives us a really important clue. It shows us that we can't go looking for the Rosary we know today back in the 13th century because, as you can see, it just didn't exist yet. The devotion itself was still kind of in its infancy. It was still growing and changing. And this chart, wow, it really hammers the point home, doesn't it? What someone was doing in the 13th century and what we call the Rosary today are just worlds apart. This helps explain why the early accounts might not use the same words we do, and why that evidence is so hard to find.
Okay, so to really get the why behind this prayer, we have to understand the crisis St. Dominic was up against. And this wasn't some polite academic debate. This was a full-blown spiritual war for the very soul of Christendom. At the very heart of this movement was a really radical idea, that there weren't one, but two gods. A good God who made the spiritual world, and an evil God who made the entire physical world. That means everything you can see, touch, and feel, your own body, the food you eat, all of it was considered fundamentally evil. So, as you can see, this worldview was a total rejection of some core Christian beliefs. They thought that Christ only looked human, that his body, his suffering, his resurrection, it was all just an illusion. And if that's true, then Mary couldn't really be the mother of God. And things like marriage or having kids, they saw that as evil because you were just trapping more spiritual souls in evil, material bodies.
So here's the crucial part. Imagine you're trying to fight an idea that says the human body is evil and that Jesus wasn't really human. What could possibly be a better weapon than a prayer that makes you focus on the most physical moments of his life, his birth, his suffering, his death, all while you're repeating over and over again the phrase, "Blessed is the fruit of thy womb." It was like the perfect spiritual medicine for the sickness of that time.
Okay, so we've established the motive. Now let's look at the actual arguments. We're going to dive into the evidence for and against Dominic's role, almost like we're historical detectives trying to crack the case.
So the biggest challenge to the tradition came way back in the 17th century. It was from a group of super meticulous Jesuit scholars called the Bollandists. Their whole job was to fact-check the lives of the saints. And when they pointed their magnifying glass at the Rosary story, they basically said, nope, the primary evidence just isn't there, which was a pretty bold thing to say at the time.
Their argument was really logical and simple. For an event this huge, someone at the time would have written it down. The fact that nobody did, and that the detailed story only pops up centuries later, well, that suggests it might be a legend that grew over time, not a single historical event.
But hold on, the story doesn't end there. Because the folks who support the tradition have a really powerful counter-argument. An absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, especially when you're talking about the complete chaos of the Middle Ages.
They argue that documents linking Dominic to the Rosary probably did exist, but they were lost, burned in wars, or destroyed when the Black Plague just wiped out entire communities and their records. You can't just throw out centuries of a deeply held tradition just because the paper trail literally went up in smoke.
And besides that, we actually do have some really tantalizing clues from that time period. We see one of Dominic's own buddies dying while holding a knotted cord for counting his prayers. We see groups started by his order reciting the 150 Hail Marys. And we even have a poem written a whole century before that main source that already connects St. Dominic to this prayer. The breadcrumbs are there, even if the full loaf is missing.
So, where does all this conflicting evidence actually leave us? Well, it doesn't lead to a simple yes it happened or no it didn't. It actually points to something much deeper, and honestly, a lot more interesting about what St. Dominic really did. It wasn't about a single event, but something more organic.
Yeah, the picture that starts to form isn't Dominic just being handed a finished product from on high. It's a picture of a brilliant spiritual innovator, someone who took the pieces that were already there and fused them together into something totally new, something powerful, something that had a soul.
And this slide just perfectly captures his genius. See, he didn't invent the beads, he didn't invent the Hail Mary, he created the method. He took the body of the prayer, the repetition of the Hail Marys, and he gave it a soul, the focused meditation on the life of Christ. That combination, that's the secret sauce. That's what makes the Rosary what it is.
And this really gets to the heart of the tradition. Even if St. Dominic was the human architect who put all the pieces together, many believe the inspiration, the whole blueprint, and the incredible spiritual power of the prayer points to something deeper, something maybe more divine than human, a divine spark, maybe.
So in the end, this whole investigation shows us something amazing. The Rosary wasn't just a string of beads handed down in one moment. It was a brilliant, dynamic response to a world in crisis. It was a tool designed to ground people in the truth, in the goodness of creation, and in the reality of hope. And you know, that purpose might be just as relevant for navigating the chaos and confusion of our own time as it was 800 years ago. So the real question isn't just about how the Rosary began, but what it can become for us, right here, right now.
In the dark of doubt and fear, Dominic prayed, "Oh Mother, draw near." The heresy raged, the truth grew dim. Mary appeared and gave hope to him. She said, "Take my Psalter, preach my son, repeat his story till hearts are one. Ave Maria, beads of grace. Through your rosary, hearts embrace. Each Hail Mary, a rose of prayer, for peace, for souls, for love to share." Not with sword, but with a word, Dominic preached and hearts were stirred. Joyful, sorrowful, glorious light, Mary's Psalter turned darkness to bright. A chain of love, a holy song that keeps the church forever strong. Ave Maria, beads of grace. Through your rosary, hearts embrace. Each Hail Mary, a rose of prayer, for peace, for souls, for love to share. A chain of love, a holy song that keeps the church forever strong. Ave Maria, beam of light, teach us to pray by day and night. Our Lady's Psalter, gift divine, through every beat shine. Hail Mary, full of grace, blessed are you in every place. Blessed are you in every place.